Welcome to the Restricted Handling Podcast. This is what's been going on in China in the past 24 hours. First up, Xi Jinping. On February 11th, he publicly acknowledged what he called an unusual and extraordinary year for the People's Liberation Army. That's diplomatic phrasing for some very senior heads have rolled. We've already talked about turbulence inside the PLA, but this is the update. Xi himself is now openly referencing the anti-corruption drive inside the military and describing it as revolutionary forging. He Weidong was expelled back in October. Zhang Youxia, vice chairman of the Central Military Commission, came under investigation in January. These are not mid-level officers. These are top command figures. And when Xi talks about deepened political re-education and confronting risks and challenges, he's signaling that loyalty audits are still very much ongoing. It's a reminder that while the PLA projects confidence outward, there's internal discipline happening at scale. And that context matters when you look at Taiwan. On the Taiwan front, we're not seeing a brand new playbook, but we are seeing it sharpened. Beijing reiterated at its annual Taiwan Work Conference that it will firmly support patriotic pro-reunification forces and strike against separatists. That language isn't new. What's notable is how tightly it's now synced with operational behavior and Defense Ministry warnings. Defense spokesperson Jiang Bin again warned that if Taiwan's armed forces dare to provoke conflict, they would be wiped out. This time, he explicitly referenced reported Taiwanese plans to forward deploy HIMARS rocket systems to Penghu and Dongyin. That's the nuance. This isn't abstract rhetoric, it's aimed at specific capabilities. Meanwhile, Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense reported that on February 11th, it detected 11 PLA aircraft, including nuclear-capable H-6K bombers, conducting long-range training east and southwest of the island. We've already discussed the late December Justice Mission 2025 exercise, but additional details continue to underscore just how aggressive those maneuvers were. On December 29th, a J-16 fighter reportedly fired flares toward a Taiwanese F-16 after crossing the median line. In another encounter, a J-16 moved into what was described as a near-firing position behind an F-16. There was also the tactic where a fighter tucked under an H-6K bomber to reduce radar detection before rolling and flashing its missiles. This isn't random swagger. It's controlled risk. It's intimidation calibrated just below escalation. And inside Taiwan, the political debate continues. President Lai Ching-te is pushing for passage of a $40 billion special defense budget. The U.S. has already backed the plan and announced $11.1 billion in arms sales in December. But the Kuomintang says it won't approve a blank check. So the external pressure is rising while internal political negotiations are playing out in real time. Beijing is watching both. Now let's widen the lens to Japan. Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi just secured a landslide victory. We talked previously about Beijing's economic retaliation after Xi suggested Japan could be drawn into a Taiwan conflict. What's new isn't the pressure, it's the result. Voters didn't punish her for standing firm. They rewarded her. China had canceled tourist flights, throttled access to rare earth magnets, and unleashed a wave of diplomatic criticism. The expectation may have been that Tokyo would recalibrate. Instead, Takaichi now has a stronger parliamentary majority and is expected to pursue even closer security alignment with the U.S. It's one of those moments where coercion doesn't produce compliance. Sometimes it produces resolve. In the East China Sea, 4 China Coast Guard vessels entered Japanese territorial waters near the Senkaku Islands on February 10th. They were in for roughly 2 hours before departing. No fireworks, no collision, just presence. That's the pattern, steady-state normalization of activity around disputed territory. South of there, tensions with the Philippines continue to simmer. The Philippine Senate adopted Resolution 256, urging diplomatic measures to defend sovereignty in the South China Sea. The Chinese embassy in Manila called it a political stunt. Beijing barred 16 officials from the Kalayaan Island Group from entering mainland China, Hong Kong, and Macau. Manila responded by urging calm and reaffirming its reliance on UNCLOS and the 2016 arbitral ruling. It's diplomatic escalation, not naval escalation, but the tone is hardening. Now let's talk rare earths, because this is where the economic chessboard gets interesting. Premier Li Qiang inspected rare earth facilities in Jiangxi province this week. He emphasized deeper integration of research, industry, and application. That's not just industrial policy, it's signaling. Rare earth elements are critical to advanced manufacturing and weapons systems. We've already seen Beijing tighten export controls in response to U.S. restrictions on Chinese investment. Now the U.S. is countering more formally. The Trump administration launched Project Vault, a $10 billion strategic critical minerals initiative backed by the U.S. Export-Import Bank, with another $2 billion in private funding. Vice President J.D. Vance floated the idea of coordinating allies into a preferential minerals trade bloc with price floor mechanisms. Taiwan says it currently consumes about 1,500 metric tons of rare earth annually and expects that to rise to 2,000. It's sending officials to assess U.S. deposits and plans to expand refining capacity to cover half of its demand. That's not theoretical hedging, that's practical supply chain repositioning. Let's shift to Europe briefly. In Hong Kong, Captain Wan Wenguo of the Hong Kong-registered Nunu Polar Bear pleaded not guilty to charges connected to the October 2023 severing of submarine cables and the Baltic Connector gas pipeline between Finland and Estonia. Prosecutors allege the ship dragged its anchor, damaging 3 telecom cables before striking the pipeline. 18 witnesses are expected. The next hearing is scheduled for May 5th. Undersea infrastructure continues to sit uncomfortably exposed in an era of gray zone competition. Back in Hong Kong proper, Jimmy Lai's 20-year sentence under the 2020 National Security Law continues to reverberate. We covered the sentencing itself. The update here is the formal white paper Beijing released shortly afterward, emphasizing that safeguarding national security in Hong Kong is a central government responsibility and that public office must be held by patriots. It wasn't defensive, it was declarative. The system is locked in. And finally, China's Ministry of State Security issued a public advisory warning that foreign intelligence services are approaching expatriates in sensitive sectors under the guise of enthusiastic friends. The guidance flagged document control lapses, risks tied to outsourced personnel, and emotional cultivation tactics designed to extract confidential information. It reads like counterintelligence hygiene, but it also underscores how Beijing sees the environment: contested, penetrated, and requiring vigilance. So step back and look at the board. Xi is reinforcing loyalty at the top of the PLA. Taiwan remains under sustained military and rhetorical pressure. Japan's election shows that coercion can backfire. The Philippines is pushing back diplomatically. Rare earths are now openly strategic leverage. Hong Kong's political model is firmly entrenched, and even undersea cables are part of the story. Thanks for listening and being part of the RH community. Please take a moment to leave a 5-star review. If you want to see some changes, email us at info@restrictedhandling.com. We also publish a daily written intel brief on Substack, where you'll find even deeper coverage of Russia and China, along with insights on Iran, the Middle East, and the DPRK.